Hello, strangers. Once again, video day today, and as promised, I was going to talk a little bit more about my life in Germany. And today, I'm going to get into the kind of what I did for fun while I was there. There's basically a few things that occupied my time there. Let's see, video games, um, riding bicycles, exploring the forest, climbing trees, and then, of course, various winter things when it snowed. So I'm going to see if I can cover all five of those and try to get it as condensed as I can. So the first of those was that I mentioned was playing video games, and now I talked about some of the computer games that my dad, because he was laid up on the couch. He had his computer, he got his TRS-80, and we had gone out to buy video games, um, among other various programs that he got from the Radio Shack store in Offenbach, something that I talked about in part two. So besides that, I also had our Atari 2600 that we played video games on, and that was basically my source of indoor entertainment, at least for a while. Um, Sometime, I'm not entirely sure when, but my brother, who was around 4 at that time, 4 closing in on 5, he ended up starting kindergarten while we were in Germany. But I think before that, while he was still 4, he fell down the flight of stairs that we had leading up to our apartment, and hit his head. And because of that, he started having these seizures. And I only managed to see one such episode. And it was kind of odd to see. But strangely enough, those seizures tended to be triggered when we were playing the Atari. When he was playing the Atari, and in particular the Defender game that we had. So, needless to say, I didn't play Defender all that often, or especially around my brother, and we really didn't play that many video games as a result, anyway. So, but I did have that, and between the Atari and the TRS-80s, those video games, I played some video games. The other thing I did, so I ended up going outside a lot. It was something that kids in the 80s actually still did, despite the growth of the video game industry. Went outside, and I would occasionally ride my bike. I didn't have many friends there. Something that I will probably get to in the next episode on Germany when I talk about school. I did have one friend. I had a couple, and we had a couple of friendly neighbors and such. And so we go out and we ride our bikes. I still had my the 3-speed bike that I'd gotten in Kansas, which I really didn't ride that often because frankly, it was a piece of crap. So I didn't ride that. So I didn't ride that often. What I did manage to get, and I'm not too sure how or when, managed to get a hold of a used green machine. So, and I rode that all over the place. My brother had a big wheel that he rode around on, so the two of us, I'd run that green machine up and down the sidewalks all over the complex there, all over around our circle that we lived on. So we I drive that around, and I was very cautious about driving the green machine around. As fun as it was, and it was a blast. You still had plastic wheels, the same kind of plastic wheels that you had on the big wheels at the time. I think the green machines that they make nowadays are bicycle wheels, so they have the tubing. But back then they're plastic, and the sidewalks around there were brick. So I was very careful because I had already gone through two big wheels when I was before I was 6. Just normal wear and tear on the regular concrete. I basically flattened out and made holes in the plastic big wheel. And so I was very cautious about doing the same kind of thing to the green machine. But I think the green machine really, and like I said, was used. So it really didn't last much past um, Germany. I'm not too sure if we brought it with us when we left. But I got a new bike um, when we got to Oklahoma again, and so that the green machine went out the window anyway.
Now, as I've said before, and as I've shown you before, we lived in this circular cul-de-sac area up on top of Wetzel Hill, and the one of the other things that I did to pass the time, if you notice, right behind where our apartments are, down the hill, sloping down the hill, is this rather large clump of trees, a little forest, as it were there. And I would go down into now. I would go down into there. We weren't supposed to. There were signs posted all over the perimeter of this forest. Do not go down into the forest. But we ignored that. And myself, my brother, the one real good friend I had, his name is Dustin Hutchinson. Here's a picture of him from back then. That was pretty. Dustin and I are pretty much closest friends you can get. Huck Finn Tom Sawyer type idea there. And so we I mean, in a sense we do kind of the Huck Finn Tom Sawyer kind of thing. We go out and into the forest and kind of play army. We have their little toy guns. We do that kind of stuff with. We just go exploring through there. We had there was one little area in the forest that was kind of a hollow area. The bush there. I mean, the thing is, there's tall pine trees. There's a few leaf trees, but it's mostly pines, and there's a whole bunch of bushes and shrubs all through there. And so we happened to find an area that we kind of called our fort because it was kind of enclosed in amongst the trees there. Somebody, I think, had built a tree house up on the other side of that, on the other side of the bush there. It was really kind of hard to. I think somebody tried to build one. It wasn't very successful with it, and I guess somebody discovered it and pulled it apart. So it was really hard to get up to. I'm not too sure if we even managed to do that. So we would we'd go through exploring through all through that forested area. Now at the bottom of the hill, as you might be able to see in this picture here, the bottom of the hill, there's a bit of a road there, kind of a dirt road, and there's one time we noticed that there was German army, and we noticed this because of the black iron cross denoting the German army. I think we saw a few of those tanks kind of rolling past on this dirt road one time. But across at the bottom of the hill, across the little dirt road, and across this field, there was another clump of trees, and we would occasionally go to that. Now, I think this was kind of a hangout for the teenagers, and I think it was definitely teenagers, and particularly boys from the high school, junior high school combo. So definitely older than us used to hang out there. We never saw any of them, But what we did find in this kind of little grouping of trees there were a lot of empty beer bottles, a few beer cans, which I didn't care for because I can't stand the taste of or smell rather of beer, much less the taste of it. So I had no interest in that whatsoever. But occasionally we'd also find usually pages, not whole magazines, but pages from um, Playboy's, Penthouse, all sorts of other magazines of that sort, kind of scattered here and there. That I'm assuming that they, these boys had managed to steal away from their father's collections. So that was kind of entertaining, enlightening in many ways for a 9-year-old to kind of discover those kind of things. But so we go exploring through the forest. That was probably my main occupier. I was constantly in this forest. Um, and not only was I constantly in the forest, but I was usually up one of the trees. There was as much as possible, I try to climb the trees that are there, and it wasn't that easy. There weren't too many. These are pine trees, so there aren't too many pine trees that have branches that are lying close enough to the ground that especially a 9-year-old could reach up and grab onto and latch onto. But there was one really close to the apartment, as it actually is right on the edge of the forest. They managed to actually put a park bench, and I've got a picture of my brother and our neighbor kid girl who lived right across the hallway from us, and she was about the same age as my brother, maybe about a year or two, a year older. I think she might have hit kindergarten before he did. And her name is Samantha or Sammy. I don't remember the last name, so I can't. But if you notice the picture there's this little park bench that they're playing on there, and the tree that it's right next to, it had a broken off limb that was just low enough that if I got up on that park bench, I could reach up and grab onto that limb, pull myself up, and then start climbing up the rest of the pine. And I climbed up to the top of this thing so high, just basically got all the way as far as I can go up to it until the branches were too dense to go any higher. And I looked out across the from the pine, and noticed that I am standing up as high as I can go. I'm basically sitting level with the top of our apartment complex. Now, again, the picture here, tells you how high this apartment complex is. We got the 3 stories of apartments plus the top floor kind of annex area that's in some buildings were made into apartments too. I was level with the top of that roof up this particular pine. And there's another one that's a little further down the hill here. So here's a little picture of the hill, and I'll get to this hill in a minute. But I've circled a couple trees on here, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But the one that's on the left, either that tree or another one in the same area. There's a cherry tree right there, wild cherries, and the branches were low enough to the ground that I could get up in that one too. And that was nearly as high as the pine that I'd like to get up. Now, climbing up these, climb up these trees, and I get up on top of them, and occasionally my mother would come out and call for me. It's dinner time, whatever. Freddie, come back. Time to come in. And I'm up this pine tree, and I call down. Okay, Mom, coming down. And she'd have to crane her neck. Look, what are you doing up there? That kind of thing. And but the thing about the pine, being up the pine and such, she couldn't really see
just how high I'd gotten. Well, one time I was up in the cherry tree on the hill, and she came out and again calling for me, time to come in. Okay, ma. And now she's looking out, straight ahead out into what's ahead of her. She doesn't look up, and she's calling for me out in a thing, and I'm from way up here. Okay, mom. And so she looks up, and this time she can see me because the cherry tree really didn't have a whole lot of dense foliage to it, so you could still kind of see through it. And so she saw me up at the top of this tree, and I get up as high in that cherry tree as my weight would allow me, which, given how light I was back then, I could get up pretty high, as opposed to maybe some of my classmates or as others. With the pine tree, I got up as high as the needles and branches and stuff. They kind of, as you get higher, they get denser. And so I got up as high as I could go before it just got too dense to get up any higher. With the cherry tree, the branches just thin out as you get higher. So at that point, it's a matter of weight. You don't want to get up too high to the point where your weight cracks the branches and you fall. But like I said, I didn't really weigh much as a 9-year-old. Even as a 9-year-old, I was on the low end of my weight range. I was, pretty much at the line between, underweight, and normal. So I didn't weigh much. Like I said, as compared to my various classmates, I was a really skinny kid. So they couldn't have got up. They couldn't have gotten up as high in that tree as I was able to because of the weight issue. But getting to that hill now.
So the last thing that we did for fun mainly happened in the winter, and I was there for one full winter and only part of another one, but it did manage to snow both of those times. And again, if you look at the map there of where we lived, that central area, that green area in the center, around the circle there, around the oval, little grassy field there, and not much for I suppose if it was windy enough, you had a kite, you could go fly a kite there, and it's a nice open field. We'd occasionally, during the spring and summer, you could play soccer in that field, you could play football in that field. It was a pretty wide field and obviously very long. But when it snowed, oh boy, we built snow forts. It was snowball fight season right through there. And that was prime territory for we build up snow forts. We tried to build snowmen. It was perfect area for that kind of thing. And when it snowed, I think that's when we got, me at least, a sled. We might have gotten it in Oklahoma. I can't quite remember. But I had this sled. Literally the kind of Red Ryder or Rosebud type sled. All metal frame, metal runners, and then wood. And it had kind of this bow or crossbow type handlebars on the thing, so you could actually, then it was attached to the runners that you could kind of steer with. And if you look at this picture here, and and hopefully I'll be able to do this justice with a Google Maps image here, but or a Google Earth image, but so this is actually, as best I could get from Google Earth, view from the bottom of the slope looking up. It's kind of hard to tell, but this is basically about where the red zone that's circled there. So it's about a good 30-degree slope or so, um, which, again, you can pick up some pretty good speeds there. So we would start up where the blue zone circled there, go down um, to this. There's this flat place between those trees there in yellow, and then again the stop zone, which I'll mention is down at the bottom there, and that's where this view is from. That's a really steep hill going from our level up top down to the next level of apartments down below. There's a hill that runs down that, and the kids around there named it Suicide Hill. And during the summer and during when there's no snow on that hill, why would you name it Suicide Hill? When the winter comes and that thing's snowy, and you start taking sleds and other various snow things down that hill, the name becomes very apt. It's a steep hill, and you go down it real fast on a sled or some other kind of thing. Some people had sleds, other people had various plastic type things, looked like trash can lids. Anything and everything that could possibly, slide down snow, that you could ride on. Somebody had. And, the kids would go up the hill and then flying, and I mean literally flying down this hill. And now remember the two trees that I circled there, right about now the one on the, like I said, the one on the left there, the lower left, if that's the right tree, that's the cherry tree that I climbed. To the right one, I don't think that wasn't there 30 years ago. This was pretty open field at that time, but right around where those are, kind of in between them, the hill kind of flattened out there, so it kind of went down really steeply, flattened out just a bit right around where those trees are, and then went down the hill and then flattened out again right as you got to the turnaround for the street there and the other apartment. But the thing is, it didn't really flatten out enough. That was the stop zone, and if you didn't stop in that area, in that flattened out area at the bottom there, if you notice, there's trees. The forest extends around that, and there's trees down there. That goes downhill. And so this is basically why it was called Suicide Hill, because if you didn't stop in that stop zone at the bottom there, you went over and into those trees and down the hill. So you pick up quite a bit of speed, and so it was definitely aptly named Suicide Hill. So that's, and I've got a story about that.
Now, as much fun as Suicide Hill could be, as I mentioned, if you went off track anywhere, you're in trouble. And I actually did that. I loaned my sled out to another kid and took basically it was a sheet of plastic. And I went belly first onto the sheet of plastic and went right down the hill and picked up an enormous amount of speed and couldn't get off. I let go of the plastic, it rolled up in my face, I couldn't see anything, I tried to roll off of it, and all it managed to do was turn me around, such that I slid all the way across the flat area next to the building, and got myself turned completely around so that I was facing uphill. And I was digging in with my fingers. I managed to spread eagle my feet out to try to claw into the thing, and it was just hard compacted ice. And I went over the side into the trees. And I went down, feet like that, right into a tree. So I was in a lot of pain. Yeah, I'm barely 9, I think. I think this is after my birthday. This is the January so after the birthday. I don't remember when. you tend to block some of the other things out when things like that happen. So, um, but I was in a lot of pain. I was in tears, crying. I was yelling at the guy that loaned me his things. That and he's all here. You're supposed to roll off. You're supposed to whatever. And I'm cursing him out. Little 9-year-old cursing him out. And threw the thing back at him. Grabbed my own sled away and walked back up the hill and went home. And that was the last time I ever loaned out my sled to anybody else, um, or rode on anybody else's sleds or whatever.
In 2007, my brother Jim managed to get a bit of an intern job through his college for summer in Germany, and he took a few days to actually travel. He was up in the Hamburg area, so he took a couple days to travel south, mainly by train to Baumholder to see if he could see his old stomping grounds. So, and he took a few pictures. But what I wanted to point out was that, you know, there's the high school. There's the picture of the high school there. Um, but because of 9/11, my brother's access to anything in Baumholder, particularly where we lived, was pretty well blocked. They set up checkpoints, very similar to this one, all over that. And because, yes, he was American, yes, he had a passport, yes, he had all that stuff, he had to get all sorts of kind of special permission apparently in order to actually get into past these checkpoints. And so he couldn't actually get into our old neighborhood, much less get much very close to the buildings. So the closest he got was, he went walking in behind there, and he managed to get a shot of our old building. And this is a picture of it as it was, and probably still is, in 2007. And if you look real closely, the forest that used to be right close up to the building there is gone. That pine tree that I climbed all the way up to the top of, and level with that same apartment building, that's not there. That's gone. They apparently cut back everything right up to the point where it starts to slope down the hill. And not only that, remember how I said at the beginning of this video how they had signs all over the place that said, do not go into the forest. Well, now apparently they've got fences there to kind of reinforce that idea: do not go into this forest. So, in a sense, that kind of sucks for the kids that live there. I mean, yeah, apparently they've got playground equipment there, and more, things. We had very scant. I think we had maybe a merry-go-round, maybe a swing set or something like that. Well, not a merry-go-round, but a little turn type thing, in between our apartment and the one next to us, in the back there. So there was a little bit to play on. There was a little sandbox. It was practically useless. But the real fun, obviously, for me anyway, was going in amongst those trees down that hill. So that's something that apparently the kids that live there now kind of missing out on. But yeah, so that's what 30 years and a terrorist attack will do for you. So that will pretty much wrap up this one. Again, I'll get into what school life was like. And possibly, talk a little bit about the field trips. I've got a few pictures that I've got to see if I can locate, particularly about a castle that we went to. But again, that's another story for another day. There is one thing that I would like to say, though. I'd like to I have no idea where Dustin Hutchinson is. Again, here's his picture um, from back in 1982, and he would have been, you know, 8 or 9, same as me at that time. And he was in a different class. He wasn't in the same third grade class as me. He was in a different one. Um, but yeah, he lived there. I think his dad was a sergeant of some rank. Um, one of the enlisted ranks there. Not entirely sure. But if Dustin is out there, or if anybody knows him, I'd love to hear from him again. So look down into the various contacts and, give me a ring. Uh, if you're out there, Dustin, I'd love to hear from you and see how things are going. Anyway, that closes us out. So see you guys later, and stay strange.
Thanks for watching my video. If you like what you just watched, don't forget to give me a thumbs up below. For more of my videos, click the subscribe button on the screen or down in the description below. If you'd like to support me and what I do, I have books that you can read. The links are in the description below. If you want to support in other ways, you can go to my Patreon page and help me out there. You can also follow me on various social media pages. The links to all of those are also below. Thank you again. Stay strange.